Hey guys, I just watched The Conjuring. This is going to be the second time that I've seen it. I saw it when it first came out in the movie theater, but I hadn't rewatched it since until today. I really liked how The Conjuring opened with the two roommates and the Annabelle doll and how they introduced Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I think most people know by now that Ed and Lorraine Warren were demonologists that not only investigated this house, but also the house in The Haunting in Connecticut and the Amityville house, and as we now found out from The Conjuring 2, the Enfield house in England. They introduced us to the family, and I like how they did not make it very hokey. It was very straightforward. It wasn't how a lot of movies do that, oh, let's make sure that people know how much this family loves each other. You don't have to oversell that. If you have written the characters the right way, people will pick up on that just through how they interacted with each other. But I liked how they did that. I also appreciate that they did not do the mirror jump scare. There was one scene where the mother went to get her medicine out of the medicine cabinet mirror in the bathroom, and usually with a lot of movies it'll be, the person looks in the mirror, they open it, get something out of it, they close it, and boom, something's behind them. They did not do that. She got her medicine, she opened the cabinet, closed it, there was nothing behind her. I appreciate that they did not do that. There's some really great scares in this movie. There's one in particular that I thought the acting was amazing. It was the middle daughter. Something happens in her room, and the way the actress conveyed that type of fear that you're so scared that you can't even scream was perfect. That was really good. There's another one with the teenage daughter, and it involves her wardrobe in her room and something that happens, and it was too funny because when what happened, a man jumped up and ran out of the theater. I mean, a grown-ass man, he jumped up, I think he said something to the effect of, that's it, I can't do this, and he ran out of the theater. When they do choose to do a jump scare, it actually works. Now, as I said, this is my second time watching the movie. There's a particular scare in the basement. If you've watched the movie, I'll say involving feet, so you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't watched the movie, then you still won't get spoiled. There's a particular scene in the basement, and the thing about it is, I had seen the movie before, I knew the scare was coming, I still jumped a second time. And to me, I feel like that is a really good movie when they can re-scare you with something that you already know is coming. One thing that I think a lot of people may have overlooked is the camera work. The camera work in this movie was really, really great. There's a scene where the mother's going down to the basement and then we get her point of view. And I like how they switched to a handheld view to make it more, it really made you feel like you were inside her and how the basement would look to you as you were coming down the stairs. That was really good. There was also a section of the movie where Ed and Lorraine were doing their investigation and they switched to a Super 8 camera. That was, it really looked like, I have a very small memory of Super 8 film. I remember seeing some when I was about 3 or 4 years old, but to me right now I feel like it looked the same as how I remembered it looking. There's also a scene that's set up with Ed and Lorraine's daughter. She's standing at the top of the stairs by her bedroom door, and the camera view is looking towards her but facing upward. And one thing that I really noticed was, to me, it really felt Kubrickian. That's what I'll call it, because it had that for a moment feeling of The Shining, just that one thing. And I'm trying to analyze why I felt that way or why it may have looked that way. The only thing that I can come up with was from the point of view of the camera, you could see the stairs going up, both walls, the ceiling, and how everything kind of was coming, like the daughter was the focal point. I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm just trying to explain why I felt that that particular shot reminded me of The Shining. If you feel something different, there's the comment section down there, you can let me know. To sum this up, I would put The Conjuring up on my top 20 horror movie lists of all time because I really felt it was beautifully done. Let me mention also the costume design. A lot of movies get the 70s and the 80s wrong. They overdo it and then it just looks bad. I'll just say it looks bad. This movie, they really got the 70s look down. The only thing that I would question a little bit was some of the characters' haircuts, because I felt like when I saw movies from the 70s, or as I remember people from the 70s, men's haircuts weren't that clean and tight. They were a little bit more shaggy, but that's really a small, nothing to worry about. But the clothing that was selected, the colors, of the clothing was the 70s to me. That was really, really good. Also, the acting, I can't say enough how much acting makes a difference in a horror movie. Especially on the part of Lily Taylor, when something happens to her towards the end of the movie, if she was not such a good actress, I never would have bought it, but she sold it. Even at times where it would have come off completely hokey, her acting sold it. So I mean, that was amazing. As I mentioned, that middle daughter, the scene with, if you've seen the movie, the scene when she's in bed at night and being kind of terrorized, to see how much that actress used her face more so than anything else to act, and how her expression changed from being awoken and being startled to slowly becoming terrified, and just that change and how her eyes started welling up. I mean, they really should start nominating horror movies in Academy Awards again. I think the only horror movie that I can recall being nominated for an Academy Award was The Exorcist. I could be wrong, but that's the only one I can remember. Of course, I'm not saying that The Conjuring should get an Academy Award. I'm saying that particular actress, I would have chosen her for Best Supporting Actress. You know, a nominee. Okay, so I rewatched this, or my purpose of rewatching this was to prepare to watch The Conjuring 2 so I can do a video on both movies. I'll give you my ratings for The Conjuring. Of course, the scare score, I'm giving it a 4, because to me it was extremely scary the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I still was kind of scared, but it wasn't like I can't sleep at night scare. Gore score, a 1, because there's hardly any gore in it. So that's, you know, you don't necessarily need gore to scare people. And I'm going to give it a fun factor of 4, because it really is fun to watch, I mean, in my opinion. So I'm going to get ready to go watch The Conjuring 2, which I don't know if you can tell by the video, it's during the daytime, because my husband insists on watching it during the daytime. He won't watch it at night, because he says these movies scare him and he'll have a nightmare. And I'm like, punk. I'm going to go watch The Conjuring 2 during the daytime, and when I get back, I'll let you know what I thought of it. Hey guys, I just finished watching The Conjuring 2, and I will let you know ahead of time that I watched it in Hindi, so this is kind of like a half review, because obviously I don't speak Hindi, and I'm just gonna make of the movie what I can make of it. The movie starts out having a short sequence involving the Amityville house and Ed and Lorraine helping that particular family, and then we're introduced to what I'm calling the Marilyn Manson nun that, you know, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen her. I'm almost certain that it's the same actor that played the old hag type character in Insidious, and also played the Bathsheba witch in The Conjuring Part 1. So I'm almost sure, I should look that up, whether it's the same actor. Then we meet this family in England, and there's 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys, and a mother. I do appreciate them not including that things only happen to the mother when the father's gone trope by actually not having a father present, but at the same time it still ended up doing a similar trope, because there's still a woman or a wife there by herself. I really like how when things started to happen, the children go and immediately tell their mother. There's sometimes in these movies where something will happen and the kids will just keep it to themselves for a couple days, and that's not usually how things go. I mean, usually if a little kid gets scared at night, the first thing they're doing is they're hopping up and running in their parents' room or banging on the door. They're not just gonna, you know, stay there, usually. I mean, there's a few brave souls, I'm sure, but usually that's how it works out. The thing about this particular entity that I really liked is it had 0 fucks to give. It doesn't matter, it didn't care who was there. The police show up, and the entity is like, I'm just gonna slide this chair across the room. I don't care that you're police officers. What do you think about that? As I watched this movie, I did see some familiar elements. I don't know whether these are shout outs to these past movies or just James Wan saying, well, this worked before, I'm going to make it work again. But there were a few elements in the movie that were very similar to elements that were in Insidious and also in The Conjuring. The few that I'll mention will be the ones that really won't spoil the movie. For example, the little girl being awoken in the middle of the night and being terrorized. Of course, that could be more general because that's happened in so many other movies. However, the creepy toy that plays music, that was a little too similar to the first Conjuring. And then finally, the family sleeping together on the floor in the living room. There was something else that reminded me of another movie. At one point, the little girl gets a bite on her shoulder, and it really reminded me of the bite from Paranormal Activity. Even kind of looked like it. To my memory. There were a lot of other elements that straight up reminded me of The Exorcist. And on the one hand, how could it not, considering the subject matter? But on the other hand, it was done in such a way that it wasn't in a I'm gonna rip this off way. It was more in a I really adore this movie and I want to pay homage to it. That's the way it came across to me. Two of the things that I'll mention are the fact that in both movies there's a little girl playing with a Ouija board by herself. But more specifically, there's a scene during the first interview. They interview the little girl twice. You see part of one of the interviews in the trailer. But in the first interview, when she does that other voice of the entity, the camera shot goes to her mother, and the way the mother is standing, the way that she's covering her mouth up and her whole body language was almost identical to the way Reagan's mother in The Exorcist also reacted. I mean, it's almost like if you put a side-by-side, frame-by-frame video of both shots, to me, I really feel like they looked almost identical, if not completely identical, as far as the movement, gestures, all that type of thing. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that, but I noticed it. Okay, so since I watched this movie in Hindi, I'm going to say that my ratings are tentative because I will rewatch this in English and then probably do a spoiler review and let you know how I felt. I will say that watching a movie in which I did not understand any of the dialogue but still enjoyed myself, that says a lot just by itself. It really does. When you can watch something, not understand a single word anyone has said, and still enjoy the movie and still be able to kind of understand what's going on with the characters, to me it's pretty good. Also, there were 5, as I call them, oh shit moments. I'm not going to tell you what they were right now, but when I do the spoiler review I will. But out of the whole movie, there were 5 moments that made me say, oh shit. That's how I describe it. Back to what I was about to say about the ratings. I gave this a scare score of 3 because it really wasn't as scary as the first Conjuring, but it still had some creepy moments. There's no gore score because there was no gore at all in this movie. But the fun factor, I'm giving this a 4 because it really was enjoyable to watch. Even though it wasn't the scariest movie, it still was a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it.